Today I keep running the numbers over and over again, and I just couldn't figure this out. So perhaps you can help me out, and watching this video will take you on a journey to assess whether you can retire. And I run the numbers so many times, and using the traditional finance methodology, teaching, I just can't understand how people can get to retirement if you are already 40, 50, or 60 years old. So let me explain what I mean. So here I have my retirement calculator, which calculates your portfolio value year after year from year 1 all the way till year 35. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably 40, 50, or even 60 years old. So you just need to adjust this based on how old you are, so then you are able to tell how much money you will have when you're 65 years old or 70 years old. So most people I talk to, when people schedule a call with me, they have $100,000. Now, depending on how much you're saving, some people, they are less frugal, they save $300 a month. Some people are more frugal, they save $1,000 a month. Some people save $500 a month. So depending on where you are, I just put down $1,000 of savings a month, which is near the high end. Now, if you have $100,000 to invest, and that's obviously great, seems like a good start. And let's say you are 50 years old. You know, most people, they don't think about retirement until they're closer to 50. So if that is the case, then you let your portfolio grow year after year, and in 10 years, your portfolio will be at $450,000. So that means if I expand this, you can see the money saved, year over year gain. At $450,000, the year over year gain will be around $40,000. So that means on average, you'll be getting $4,000 a month. So it is on the low side. So here you can see that I assume you're getting a 10% return a year, which I know a lot of you are getting probably something smaller, like 7 or 6, or some people getting 5 to 4% return. So if you're getting only 5% return, then it will stretch it out even more, and a year over year gain will be a lot less. So even in year 5, you will only be at 200K, which means you're making around 10,000 a year. So that is not enough for retirement. Year 10, 300K, you're making around 15,000 a year, so that is not enough for retirement. So if you're only investing 100,000, saving 1,000 a month, making 5% a year, it's actually not enough to retire. So that means you must get 10% return. So if you're able to save 1,000 a month and make 10% return a year, then you can be at 450K at the end of 10 years, which allows you to live off 4,000 a month, excluding inflation. So we actually haven't considered inflation here. And if we consider inflation and we take this 10%, let's say minus 3%, because that's what the inflation is. If inflation is 10%, then, well, you're really making 0%, so you're not going anywhere. So if you end up minusing inflation, which is 3%, then that brings you down to 7% return. So that means in 10 years, it will be worth what it is today. That is 25,000 or so. So that is actually not enough for retirement. So even though you're starting with a sizable balance, you are saving 1,000 a month, investing in S&P 500 index funds, this actually requires a much longer period in order to reach retirement. So if you're aiming for something more reasonable, like 5,000 a month, that means 60,000 a year, you actually need to get to almost $1 million in order for you to retire. So meaning that if you want to retire 20 years from now, you need $1 million, making 10% return a year, and you need to start when you're 45. So that means if you are older than 45, you need to do something about this so then you can retire faster, because you don't have 20 years. So that means people who don't think about investing and retirement early enough, basically people who are older than 45, will have trouble retiring. And I can play around with this assumption, but it doesn't change too much. So if I assume there's no inflation at all, which we know is not true, given that Fed is printing so much money, and you make 10% a year, you start with 100,000, save 1,000 a month, you still need 18 years. So when you think about that, it means you need to start when you are 50, maybe a little bit earlier, like 45. So that is kind of the latest date you need to start with the traditional finance method in order for you to retire. And this takes a lot of discipline. Think about it. $1,000 a month continuously for 18 years. It means that when your kids are growing up, you need to save $1,000 a month. And when you have any health problems, you need to save $1,000 a month. When you are unemployed for a couple of months, you need to save $1,000 a month. And on top of the mortgage, you upgrade your house, like all of that, buy a new car, you need to save $1,000 a month. And I understand why that is so difficult. So that's why I'm having trouble seeing how regular people, the average Joe, will have the ability to retire. And the more I run the numbers, the more I realize the traditional finance method just doesn't allow you to earn a high enough return. Because I think if we change this saving number to $2,000 a month, then yes, you can probably reduce it by 4 years and you get there in 14 years. So the latest time you can start planning for your investments is 50 years old. So even if you're saving $2,000 a month, you still need 15 years to get to that $1 million mark. So that is an important observation. So I guess the honest truth is, if you want to plan for retirement, you should have done it when you are in 30s. If you're able to do it, then 20s is even better. Now, when you're 20s or 30s, you need to think back, well, did you have 100,000 to start with? Maybe you don't. If you only have like 20,000 to start with, then that delays it even more. So if you have very little beginning balance, like 20,000, and you're saving 1,000 a month, making 10% return, that means you're going all in on S&P 500, it will take you 22 years. So that is actually still reasonable. You can probably get away and retire by 45 or 50 or so if you plan early enough. If you're starting with 20,000, saving 1,000 a month, all in S&P 500, then as long as you start around 40 and you work till 65, you'll still end up with $1 million. So I think that is pretty good. That is quite achievable. So I think between this 40 to 50 mark is really the threshold where after 50, it becomes extremely difficult and you need to have a much larger balance, or else you wouldn't be able to retire unless your return is higher. So meaning that you need to do something about your own portfolio, so then maybe perhaps you're getting 15, 20, or even 30%. So yeah, I thought about this many times. And you can look at the numbers yourself. In fact, you can actually pause this video. I ran through it so many times. And there isn't another variable you can change if you're investing in the stock market or index funds, which is what a typical financial advisor would tell you to do. You need 15 to 20 years in order to reach $1 million. And you need to be saving and getting this 10% return without fail. And even so, we haven't considered inflation yet. And if inflation is higher than 3%, like 4%, and you save 1,000 a month, you're starting with 20,000, boy, it's going to take you 30 years. So with a high inflation rate, low return, take out a management fee, yeah, it's going to take 30 years. So that means you need to start at 30. So you can see how difficult it is, following the traditional finance method. And if you watch one of my other videos, like the 4% rule, traditional finance tells you that you should only take out 4% of your portfolio when you retire. So if you're looking for like 60,000 when you're retiring and take out 4%, it means you need like 1.5 million. So if you do that, and let's say you're starting with 50,000, 1.5 million means you need 25 years or so. So yeah, either way, this actually takes way too many years. Yeah, so the only variable you left to change once you control the balance you start with, which is what you have, you don't really get to control it. You have done it in the past already, either you saved or you didn't save. Your savings rate going forward, which is something you can control, but most people, I think, you're going to be capped at 1,000. If you're able to do 2,000, then of course that's great. It will actually speed you up by around 5-6 years. But let's say it's $1,000 a month. The only thing you have left to change is the percentage return. So that means your investing strategy needs to generate a higher than S&P 500 return. And we know a lot of people are not getting a higher than S&P 500 return, and it's very difficult to do. And even if you look at Warren Buffett, which he does make a higher than S&P 500 return, he will tell you it's very difficult to do. So have a think about that. Yeah, I keep running the numbers, and either way it's going to take 20 to 25 years. So you can try to run the numbers as well, and let me know what you come up with. Are there alternative ways that you are executing to retire faster? And obviously, you know my retirement strategy already, so I explained that in another video. It's actually my channel video, so you can check that out as well. And when you're looking at compound interest, you'll see the last 10 years is the most crucial part. The beginning years, it doesn't seem that important. It's the last 10 years or so that it really grows for you and make a lot of difference. But if you are not having that amount of time to let money grow for you, then boy, this is the only thing you can change, which is the return. So yeah, have a think about that. I'll be curious to know how everyone is planning for their retirement. For my retirement strategy, it will take probably another 5 years or so. So yeah, I'm interested to know. I'll see you in the comments.